The forest was silent, not the peaceful kind and the kind that listens. Snow clung to pine branches like frozen breath. The temperature had dropped below -40. Metal cracked, skin burned, silence killed. And somewhere in this white hell, an army of 500,000 men marched forward, believing victory was inevitable. But they were already surrounded, not by tanks, not by planes, but by shadows on skis. So here's the question history rarely asks. How did one of the world's smallest armies survive an invasion by one of its largest, armed with nothing but snow, silence, and strategy? This is the real story of the Winter War and the forgotten heroes who turned winter itself into a weapon. November 1939. Europe was already bleeding. Nazi Germany had invaded Poland. The Second World War had begun, and in the east, the Soviet Union was watching, calculating. Finland, small, newly independent, sparsely populated, stood directly in Stalin's path. The Soviet leadership feared one thing above all else, that enemies could use Finnish territory to strike Leningrad. So Moscow demanded land. Finland refused. On November 30th, 1939, Soviet artillery opened fire. Bombs fell on Helsinki. The invasion began. The Red Army expected a victory in 2 weeks. After all, the Soviets had over 450,000 troops, thousands of tanks, complete air superiority. Finland had fewer than 180,000 soldiers, many barely trained, no tanks to speak of, almost no aircraft. One British journalist wrote at the time, "Finland is not fighting for victory, it is fighting to exist." And then winter arrived, fully, brutally. The Soviet soldiers marched in long columns along forest roads. Heavy coats, dark uniforms, shining helmets. They believed numbers would overwhelm resistance. Instead, they walked into invisibility. Finnish soldiers wore white camouflage, blending perfectly into snow-covered forests. They moved on skis, silently, faster than any vehicle. One Red Army diary recovered later reads, "We heard nothing. Then men began falling. The forest itself was shooting at us." Among the Finns was a farmer turned sniper, Simo Heiha. He did not use a scope. Scopes reflected light. Light meant death. By war's end, Heiha had over 500 confirmed kills, making him one of the deadliest snipers in history. The Soviets called him the White Death. The Finns knew they could not fight head-on, so they fought smart. They used a tactic called moti, named after stacks of firewood. Instead of attacking entire Soviet divisions, they cut supply lines, isolating enemy columns into frozen pockets. Food ran out, fuel froze solid, engines died. One Finnish soldier wrote in a letter home, "We don't defeat them with bullets alone. We defeat them by waiting." At night, Finns attacked suddenly, then vanished. Soviet tanks froze where they stood, useless monuments in the snow. The cold was merciless. Temperatures fell to -43°C. Finnish troops rotated constantly. They had hot food, shelters, local knowledge. Soviet soldiers, poorly equipped for Arctic warfare, froze in their trenches. A Red Army medic later testified, "We lost more men to frostbite than to Finnish bullets." Entire units collapsed, not from combat, but from exposure. And still, the Soviets advanced, because retreat was forbidden. By January 1940, the truth became impossible to hide. The Red Army was bleeding. Over 120,000 Soviet soldiers were dead or missing. Finland had suffered terribly too, but it still stood. Foreign observers were stunned. A declassified Soviet report later admitted, "We underestimated the enemy. We underestimated the terrain. We underestimated winter." The world learned something critical. Numbers mean nothing without preparation. Technology means nothing without understanding. Even Adolf Hitler took notice, a mistake that would echo disastrously 2 years later when Germany invaded the Soviet Union. Also in winter. Eventually, sheer Soviet mass forced negotiations. In March 1940, the Moscow Peace Treaty was signed. Finland lost territory, but Finland did not fall. The Winter War ended, but its legacy never faded. Finland remained independent. Its identity hardened, like ice under pressure. The Soviet military underwent massive reforms after its humiliation, and the world realized something uncomfortable. Empires can bleed. Giants can stumble. A Finnish veteran later said, "We didn't win the war, but we proved we could not be erased." Today, remnants of the war still rest beneath snow-covered forests. Frozen tanks, unmarked graves, silent reminders. History remembers victories, but it rarely remembers resistance. It forgets the cold, the hunger, the quiet courage of men who knew they could not win, but refused to surrender. The Winter War wasn't about conquest, it was about survival. And stories like this only survive when people choose to keep them alive. If you believe forgotten history deserves to be remembered, subscribe to the Time Navigator. Here, we uncover the stories buried beneath the noise, the quiet moments that change the world. Because sometimes history is shaped not by who has the most power, but by who chooses to remember. And in the silence of winter, the smallest footsteps can change everything.